Awesome. Okay, we'll start with the first one. So, who is the central founder of person-centered therapy, and what elements of his experiences growing up appear to have heavily influenced his approach to therapy? Um,
Well, that'd be Carl Rogers.
yeah, he is the founder, and I think definitely his childhood and the way he grew up heavily influenced it. His parents were very strict and religious. Yeah, a lot of rules, and he had a lot to obey. And so as he grew up, he kind of rejected a lot of what was taught to him as a child.
Yeah, I like that it kind of pointed out too that a lot of the stuff that he rejected wasn't in there, but like some of his ideals from his childhood were still seen in like his theory and stuff. Like without his Christian background or whatever, he wouldn't have made the same choices he did in this
Right.
therapy.
Yeah.
I also think his trip to China also impacted him a lot because it
Yeah.
said like that's when he rejected his parents and their ideology, and that's when he decided to marry his sweetheart and
Kind of just saw a
to
whole new
graduate.
world. Yeah.
Yeah, become a psychologist instead of a what was
What was
I
it?
don't even remember what it was supposed to be,
Yeah,
but
I forget. Person maybe the medical field or something along those
yeah.
lines. Let's see. Person-centered therapy is non-directive. What are the theoretical reasons for why this approach is non-directive?
Well, I
Um,
guess do you want to take this one or do you?
yeah, I can start, and then if you kind of want to add to it.
Yeah.
So it being non-directive kind of means that like there's not a specific direction to it, right? There's not a structure or questions being asked. It really is the patient or client is talking, and the therapist kind of like helps them finish their like thought process and kind of um, like reflects what they're saying, and then it's kind of up to that client to be like, yes, you're right or you're wrong. Um, but it's really about that the client has the power and the what is it? Um, like they have inside of them to kind of find the answers within themselves.
Yeah. I like that it's client directed, especially, that makes it really nice. Um, and also I really like that it emphasizes not training or teaching anyone how to get better. It's more that we already have the answers or the client
Mhm.
already has their answers and that they just need to find that answer.
Right.
Um, and I like that it's like not confrontational. It's just kind of like doesn't probe or anything. It just allows for that natural flow of events. Like when you're ready, I'm ready to talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah, like in the case that the video, how she like really wanted the answers, but he was just like just try to kind of give her some
You tell me.
information, but you need to tell me I can't answer those for you. Like you have what's in you to know the answer.
Exactly. So the next one is in order to develop mental health, it's essential for people to develop congruence between what? And I put their real self and their ideal self. Is
Yeah,
that
I got the same
what
one.
you got? Okay.
Yeah, same
And
answer.
then this congruence is not with the therapist, but within themselves.
Right.
How does one go about developing this congruence? And I kind of went along the lines of they need to shift their behavior to be in line with their ideal selves, or they need to shift their ideal self to be in line with the real self.
Right. That was literally my exact answer. And it really depends on the person. Like you kind of have to lay out, like, here's my ideal self, and then kind of go back and say, well, here's my real self, and kind of, really just decide which way do I want to go. And
Right? Do I want to stay where I'm at or change?
mhm.
And honestly, I listened to that part of his lecture like 3 times because it took me a minute to get what he was saying. Because I'm like, wait, self, self, self. But
Right.
finally got it. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, does make sense. I wonder, oh,
And a
never mind.
big
I'll ask
part
you
of
next time.
that is like you have to know what your values, goals, and beliefs are.
Hmm.
If you don't know what those are, then you can't be in accordance with your own thoughts or feelings, and you can't figure out if you want to strive for your ideal self or stay at your real self now.
Right. And I wonder if sometimes that kind of has to be like a give and take. Like, here are like these three things that I really want for my ideal self, and here are these. And it's like, what is really important to me, like in that ideal self that I'm really going to keep working towards.
Yeah,
Wonder if
definitely.
sometimes there's like a give and take.
A lot of times our ideal self is a perfect self,
Mhm.
and we can't be perfect. We're human
Exactly.
and flawed.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Let's see. In person-centered therapy, uh, in person-centered therapy, it is essential for the therapist to be congruent. How does the therapist express this congruence? Why is it so difficult to do so? And is it possible to be congruent in ways that are not therapeutic? Let's see. I would say, how does the therapist express congruence? I think it was like a really important part that the therapist really had to care about that person, have empathy for that person, um, and also not put their own opinions or not like their own beliefs or biases into therapy.
yeah, definitely. It's all about being genuine or authentic. Honestly, I think that Rogers kind of said it best because he said that it is only by providing the genuine reality, which is in me, that the other person can successfully seek the reality in him. And that just
Oh, I
really
like
stood out
that.
to me in the reading.
Yes, I like that.
It's really difficult to be real and express both positive and negative emotions for the client or the therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think I already touched on this, but another reason why it's so difficult to do so is because we naturally have our own biases and our own opinions. And it's just like it could be difficult when it comes to if there's something that the therapist is doing that really is like against what you're doing or something. It's about still being able to kind of leave that at the door and then just focus on the client and helping them.
Yes, definitely. All about the client in this.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, I also kind of put that it's not therapeutic to share like random self-disclosures, but only the ones that are actually relevant to the client and what's actually going on in the moment.
Let's see. Motivational, or do you have anything else to add for that one?
I'm good.
Um, Motivational interviewing is a contemporary application of PCT. In what ways does it stay true to Rogers' principles, and in what ways does it depart? And then why? We can do the second question, I guess, after that.
Okay.
Let's see.
Well, I put the PCT like PCT, the MI focuses on not confronting, interrupting, or pressuring the clients.
Yes.
And it uses like listening and encouraging for the positive changes to occur. I also put that they both de-emphasize expertise and they focus on partnership.
Yes.
They're on profound acceptance, which is like the absolute worth, accurate empathy, autonomy, support, and affirmation.
Affirmation, yeah.
That's kind of where I put that they're really similar in there.
And then I also put like with that, they also do still reflect on the ideal self versus the real self. And that, yeah, like you had already mentioned, like the ideas are still coming from the client. Even though there's questions asked, the ideas are still coming from the client.
Yeah. And I put the main difference was that MI identifies like the specific techniques to use, while PCT does not. It doesn't really have a direction, while MI does.
And I also put along with that is that they do ask like more questions. They're a little more direct. And yeah. And then those questions can sometimes like limit the conversation a little bit compared to when there's like not being questions asked. There can be more flow.
Right. But it could also make it more directive and figure
Right.
out where the problem is that way too.
Yeah, I could see a lot of ways where it'd be a little more helpful.
Yeah. So what did you see as the benefits and detriments of departing from that?
I think that the benefits is that it can be more directive. It can kind of get to the answers a little bit easier. One thing that remember Dr. Butler has said is like the Rogerian theory is good for like you need something after that. Like you build the connection, you use that, you get the conversations going, you get an understanding of the client, but then you need something after.
Exactly. It's good at building the base.
Exactly right. So I think from like departing from that, um, and being more directive, asking questions, helping lead the conversation a little bit. I think that that is a big benefit. And then I guess the detriment would be that sometimes it can limit some, like limiting some conversation. I'm trying to think if I wrote anything else for detriments. I didn't write anything else for detriments, so did you have any for that?
Well, I think one of the other detriments would also be the same thing as what the benefit was, because sometimes being directive can like, I don't know, push for an answer almost
Yeah, that's
instead
true.
of letting it come naturally, like when the client's actually ready for that. It's more like, oh, tell me now. And it doesn't build that really trust and communication that the Rogerian theory can.
That's true. I can kind of get rid of that, like the own client's like realization of something once you ask a
Yeah.
question.
I definitely think mixing things is the best method to go about it,
Yes, I
because I feel
agree.
like there's good points to each of them that just need to be taken out and added together.
Yeah, I agree. I really
Okay,
like the
so
idea of it like being that first therapy that kind of gets like the ball rolling and then
yeah, start it out and
Mhm.
then dive into something else and figure out
Yes,
what's actually going on.
yes, like continue it until you see a need to add an additional step.
Yeah. So was there something that really stuck out to you and interested you from this chapter?
I didn't really get to this part. If you want to go first, and then um, I can just kind of we can kind of go on what you said. I forgot to look up this part, so
Okay.
I didn't like specifically look into something.
Yeah. So, well, one thing that really interested me was the power of empathetic responding. Um, and I like just how that was phrased, the power of it. Because,
Yes,
empathy helps you to see things from someone else's perspective,
it's so important.
and empathetic responding is recognizing their perspective and emotions. You communicate the client's feelings back to them, like he was doing, without being judgmental, and you're being understanding. And in doing this type of empathetic responding, it deepens that relationship between the clinician and client and forms those deeper bonds that we need to see.
Yeah, I feel like that's also like probably one of the biggest things in building trust, like knowing that someone's like listening because they're responding to you, but they're responding to you in a way that is like caring and like meaningful, and that they are like understanding you and accepting you, no matter what like the client is talking about. That's a really good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. There was one other sentence that kind of stuck out to me, and that was that psychopathology stems from judgment or invalidation of the self. That a non-judgmental atmosphere will facilitate psychological health. I thought
Oh,
it
I
was
love
interesting that it's all about the judgment,
that. Mm-hmm.
um, and not so much about the self or self-judgment and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because I haven't thought about like in psychopathology that it would stem from judgments.
Right,
You think it'd be multiple things and stuff,
right.
but that's what the book was saying about that.
I really like that.
Mm.
Well,
You have anything else to add?
I don't think there's anything else. I don't think so.
Okay. I think I'm good too.
Awesome. Cool.